Today, I will be detailing two of the most frightening experiences that I've ever had. Please get cozy. Okay, so um, the first one happened when I was in seventh grade. Um, it was at the beginning of the school year when it was still really hot out, and it was one of the days that I decided I wanted to walk home from middle school, which didn't happen very often. Um, because I lived about a mile and a half or 2 miles um, away. So usually I would just go to the rec center, but that day I guess I didn't want to. Um, and the route that I would take to walk home was pretty much I would walk a little bit and then I would reach this street that was really long, like a straight shot to my house, and it was down a really big hill. And then I would turn off onto my street, essentially. Um, and so I was walking and I got to that point where I was at the top of this really, really long hill, um, 13th Street from my Lincolnites. Um, and at the end of the block, or maybe a block and a half away, I saw this person. It was a woman, I believe, in a. I don't remember the details super clearly, but it was either a salmon jumpsuit or like a um, monochrome two piece that was like light pink. And she had a buzzed head, and she looked to be about 40 ish from what I remember. And it's been a while, so the details are a little bit fuzzy. But she's walking about a block in front of me, and I am getting scared right now because Cade is in Ireland and my house is scary. Um, and anyway, so we were walking like this for a few blocks. She was just a good distance in front of me, and then after a while, here's me, here's her. Our distances just kind of started to get a little bit closer. She was walking at a slower pace, I guess, and then eventually, as we were walking, she would kind of start to like look behind her shoulder back at me, and I was like, okay. And then eventually her pace got a little bit more hurried and frightened. So she would look back at me and then like jog and like run away from me, which was very, very harrowing as a seventh grader, because I found her to be a bit unsettling, to say the least. Um, and then it got to the point where she would look back at me, and her expression would drop, and then she would run and hide behind a tree, and then wait till I got close, look out at me like she was fucking terrified of me, run, and repeat that. And I did not know what to do because we're on a busy street. It's like 13th between like like in front of Saratoga, almost at South Street at this point. And South Street's my turn. Um and it's it's just more confusing than anything, and I started like walking slower as to not scare her more than I already was for some reason. Um but yeah, it continued like that, where she would look out from behind like a telephone pole or a bus stop at me, see me, get terrified, and run. And it was that until I turned, and then I just fucking got home, and I was like, "What was that?" I've been thinking about it ever since. See how much time I have left. 5 minutes. Um, so second story happened when I was 8 years old. So my sister and I have different dads. So I was staying at her dad's house with her because we would hang out there sometimes over the summers for a few days. And he lives in this really, really small town called Crab Orchard. I doubt anyone's heard of it. The population was like 42 last time I checked, and I think Van, that's my sister's dad's name, I think he's the mayor. potentially, something like that. I don't know. Anyway, in Crab Orchard, there's really nothing to do except for walk around in the woods and look at cars that are half submerged in the earth, or there would be like train cars. It's a very, very interesting place to go. Um, but so we just spend our days walking around and exploring. Um, but this particular day, it was like morning time or noon. I don't know. Not really relevant. But we decided we want to go walk around in the woods. And he lives like right in front of this. All the roads are gravel essentially, and it goes straight and then up a hill, and then it's just deep, like thick woods. I mean, as thick as it gets for like Nebraska. But we start walking up this like gravel road into the woods, and then it kind of just like, I guess the road stops at some point. I don't really specifically remember how it was structured. But yeah, we're just walking up and chatting, and then eventually we reach the top part of this hill, and it sort of just plateaus, and we'd never been up there at that point. Um, and the forest is no longer so thick. It's like a very nicely mowed lawn. Um, and we look over and we see like a trailer home, and we were both kind of under the impression that nobody lived up here. We didn't really know there was a road that went up there. It must have been on the back side of the hill or something. And there's a swing set and just a brown, like, double wide trailer. And then we look up, and there's about 20 turkey vultures just circling the area, which wasn't terribly uncommon, but it was very unsettling. And I think because of that, and just the eeriness of the lack of the woods that we had grown so familiar with, we both got just this instant sense of dread, that we had to leave the area as fast as possible. And it was so weird. I've just never really felt anything like that. So we started walking back down the hill, kind of in a rush, but not really. Um, and eventually, we kind of wanted to keep exploring the woods because there's literally nothing else to do. So we veered off to the left a little bit. So we keep walking. We found like this cement foundation where a home used to be, and the feeling kind of came back. And both of us are just kind of poking around, and out of nowhere, either I said it or she said it, I don't really remember. And she's 18 at the time. I don't remember if I specified that. But one of us is like, I think someone died here. And then we're like, and then she said, I think an old man died here. And I said, I think an old woman died here. And then one of us said something about a fire. And then we got the same feeling of terror and dread, but it was different. I don't know. And we kept walking down the hill, and then we saw Van's house. We see a white car in front of Van's house, and that in itself was very strange, because in all the time that we'd been out there, you don't see anyone that doesn't live there go through. It's not on the way to anything. There's literally 40 people who live there. It was very strange to see someone outside of Van's house, nonetheless. And we get closer and we see that there's a young couple, probably in their like mid-20s, standing outside their car just talking to Van. And we get closer and we're kind of like, oh, what's going on? And Van's like, oh, he says their names or something, I don't remember. And he says, they just drove in from Colorado because it's the anniversary of her grandparents' death. They died in a fire in that house up there.